My mother gave my brother a house and gave me leftovers, but karma had different plans. My name is Nicole, and I've always been the quiet one in my family, not weak, just quiet. I'm 29 now, live in a small apartment, and work as a freelance book editor. I don't have much, but I've never been bitter about it, until recently. Growing up, I knew my mom, Karen, had favorites. That favorite was my younger brother, Brad. Brad could do no wrong. When he crashed Dad's truck at 17, boys will be boys. When I got a B in math, why can't you be more like your brother? Still, I kept my head down, helped around the house, got a part-time job after school, paid for my own college with scholarships, and a job at a diner. Brad, on the other hand, dropped out of college in his second year, spent his days gaming and eating snacks from the pantry. Mom kept him fed, paid his phone bill, even bought him a car when he turned 25. I didn't complain. I figured maybe one day, things would even out. They didn't. It all started on a cold Tuesday morning, when Mom invited us over for breakfast. That was rare. She usually didn't have time unless it was a holiday or her birthday. Brad and I showed up around the same time, though he walked in late with a half-eaten breakfast sandwich in his hand and no apology. "Sit down," Mom said, setting a big plate of waffles in front of Brad. I got toast, dry toast. She sat down across from us with a folder in her hand. "I've been doing some thinking," she said. "I'm getting older, time to start putting things in place." I glanced at the folder. My stomach tightened. She opened it and pulled out 2 envelopes. She handed one to Brad. The other? She just set it on the table. "That one's for you," she said, without looking at me. Brad tore his open and grinned. "No way. The house? For real?" Mom beamed like she was giving him a Nobel Prize. "You've always been the strong one, responsible. I know you'll take care of it." I stared at my envelope, heart thumping. My palms were sweaty. I opened it. It wasn't a deed, or a check. It was a list. Old furniture, some chipped plates, a broken vacuum, a love seat with a busted spring. She labeled it, "Nicole's items." I looked up. "This is it?" She gave a weak smile. "Well, your brother needs the house, and you're good on your own. You always have been." Something broke inside me right then. I stood up, my legs shaking. "You gave him a house, you gave me leftovers." Mom's smile faded. "Don't be dramatic." Brad laughed. Classic Nicole, always playing the victim. I left without another word. That night I sat on my tiny couch with that paper in my lap. I stared at the word leftovers until the letters blurred, and I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't cry, but I would make sure karma paid my mother a visit, and she wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, I started researching, not revenge plans, or ways to fight over the house. No, I went deeper. I remembered something Dad told me once when I was 12. We were watching an old movie about a guy who faked his death, and came back to expose his enemies. Dad chuckled and said, "The best revenge. Make them think they've won, then build something they can never take from you." That's when I made my plan. I would build something Brad and Mom would never be a part of. It started small. I contacted a few of my clients who owned businesses, asked them if they needed help organizing or ghostwriting content. 2 said yes. Within a month, I had 5 steady clients. I worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Every spare dollar went into savings. Then, something odd happened. I got a message from my Aunt Renee. She was my dad's sister. We hadn't spoken much since he passed 10 years ago, but her message was short. "I heard what your mother did. Call me." When I did, she didn't even say hello. "I'm sorry she did that to you," Aunt Renee said, "but I might have something that can help." She invited me over the next day. What she showed me would change everything. Inside a locked drawer in her living room cabinet was a box. Inside that box was a copy of a deed, not to Mom's house, but to a piece of land in Red Creek, an old quiet town just an hour outside the city. It was tucked behind the old train station, a flat plot with a crumbling barn. "Your dad bought this before he passed," Aunt Renee said. "Said he wanted to build something for you on it. Your name's on it." I was speechless. "He didn't trust your mom to do right by you," she added. "Now it's yours." I took the papers home, sat with them on my lap for hours. Then I knew. This was where it began. The barn would become something beautiful, something big, and it would carry his name, and I would make sure Mom saw every bit of it, every brick, every flower, every camera that came to cover the opening day. Because what's better than revenge? Making the person who left you with nothing realize they gave away the wrong treasure. and then watch them beg to be part of it. But that's not even the shocking part. That came weeks later, when I found the old bank ledger inside the barn, and saw where Mom had really gotten the money to buy her house. That's when the real plan began, and it was going to shock her more than anything in her life. The bank ledger felt like a ticking time bomb in my hands. I sat on the torn couch in my one-bedroom rental, staring at the old leather-bound book like it held the secrets of the universe. And maybe it did. The handwriting was unmistakably my grandfather's. Page after page listed assets, deposits, and what looked like property records. But one line caught my eye, and made my chest tighten. It read, "Trust set aside for Nicole, to be opened upon her 25th birthday. Value, $28,000,000." My hands shook as I ran my fingers across the words. I had turned 25 6 months ago. I leaned back, the weight of the information sinking in. Why had no one told me about this? And why had my mother given my brother Adam a 3-bedroom suburban house fully paid for, while she'd handed me broken furniture, a car with no AC, and called it leftovers? Something was wrong. I grabbed my phone, heart racing, and called the bank listed on the ledger. After being transferred to 2 departments, a kind woman named Cheryl, from the legacy accounts team picked up. I explained what I had in front of me, and gave her my full name, birth date, and the trust account number scribbled in the margin. There was a long pause. "Miss Nicole, I do see a dormant trust under your name. It was never claimed. The account matured 6 months ago, on your 25th birthday." My throat dried out. "So what happens now?" "We'll need to verify your identity, and complete some paperwork. But yes, the funds are yours. I'll send you everything by email." I hung up, stunned. I had a trust fund, one that was hidden from me, and worse, someone, my mother, had kept it from me. I spent the rest of the night going through every drawer and box from Grandpa's old shed. Letters, records, photos, everything. As I dug, I found something else. A will. Not my grandfather's. It was my father's, and it was dated 1 year before he died. I couldn't breathe as I unfolded it. His handwriting was familiar, neat and strong. I read line after line, until I reached the part that hit like a punch to my chest. "To my daughter Nicole, I leave the family cabin in Marshville, the Chevy pickup, and my entire savings account. To Adam, I leave my watch, the cabin, the savings." I blinked hard. None of that had come to me. My mother had sold the cabin 2 years ago, saying she couldn't manage it. The Chevy had been accidentally junked, and the savings. She told me there was nothing left, that Dad died in debt. I sat still, shaking with a mixture of anger and grief. She had lied. She'd stolen my father's final wishes, and given everything to Adam. And for what? I knew then this wasn't just about a trust fund or a house. This was betrayal. My mother didn't think I mattered. She called me weak, said I was never smart enough, said Adam was the real blessing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every word she'd ever said to me, every cold stare, every time she praised Adam in front of me, and told me to be more like him. I remembered the day she handed him the keys to the house, and how she looked at me with a smug smile, and said, "All you ever do is take. At least he knows how to build something." That moment came back, like a ghost clawing at my chest. She had no idea what I'd found, and I wasn't going to tell her. Not yet. Revenge, I decided, wasn't about yelling or fighting. It was about watching the person who thought they'd won realize they were never in control. I started small. I called the lawyer listed on the bottom of the will. His office still existed, and he was retired, but his assistant helped me get a copy of the will's legal registration. It was legitimate, filed, real. I asked if it had ever been probated. She paused and said, "No, that will was never processed." Another one was presented. Another one. I asked for a copy. What I got in the mail 2 days later made my blood run cold. The second will had the same date, but the contents were different. Everything had gone to my mother, with her full control to distribute as she saw fit. It looked typed, clean, perfect, not handwritten like the one I had. And the signature, something was off. I stared at it for a long time, then pulled out the birthday card Dad had written me the year before he died. I laid them side by side. The signature on the will was shaky and crooked. The one on the card was strong and smooth. This wasn't his writing. I knew then that the second will was fake, and I had the original. Now I had 2 things, a hidden trust fund, and evidence of fraud. And I wasn't going to the police. Not yet. I needed her to feel it first. Feel the same betrayal I had felt. I made a list of everything she cared about. her church friends, her reputation at the country club, her perfect relationship with Adam, and her spot as president of the neighborhood committee at Huntington Hills. That was where it would start. At the end of that week, I showed up at her house, the one she had proudly handed to Adam, and still visited every weekend, like it was a monument to her parenting. Adam was out, but she opened the door and gave me a look like I smelled bad. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. "Just wanted to drop off something you forgot." She narrowed her eyes. "What?" I handed her a copy of the will. Her face drained of color as she scanned the first few lines. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "Oh," I said calmly. "Grandpa had it in the shed. I've been organizing some things." "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" I pulled out a second piece of paper, the bank statement of my trust fund. Her eyes flicked to it, then away. She tried to laugh. "That's old. That was a mistake." "No," I said, "it wasn't. And I know about the other will too, the fake one." She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "You wouldn't." "I haven't," I said. "Not yet." Her lip trembled, but she held herself together. "What do you want?" I didn't answer. I turned around and walked away, because this wasn't about what I wanted. This was about what she feared was coming next, and it was going to hit her harder than anything she ever imagined. The next step was already in motion, and I couldn't wait to see her world crumble. The next morning, I woke up with a calm I hadn't felt in years. It was quiet, but not the sad kind of quiet. It was the type of silence that comes just before a thunderstorm. I poured myself a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and started writing. Not to a lawyer, not to the police, but to the community board of Huntington Hills. I wrote a letter, pretending to be a concerned member of the community. I used a new email address, one that couldn't be traced. In it, I said I had reason to believe that the president of the homeowners committee, my mother, might have forged a legal document to gain full control of her late husband's estate, cutting out one of his rightful heirs. I included a few sentences from the original will, a redacted copy, and a suggestion that more information might soon be revealed publicly. I didn't sign the email, I just pressed send. The next day, I sent a similar message to the church board at Evergreen Baptist. I knew that place meant the world to her. Every Sunday, she stood at the front, smiled at everyone, and handed out fake hugs like free candy. If the board caught wind of this, her sweet church lady image would burn faster than dry leaves in a wildfire. And then, I waited. 2 days passed, 3, and on the 4th day, I got a text from my cousin Taylor. "Girl, what did you do?" I grinned, my heart racing. "Why? What happened?" I typed back. She replied with a screenshot of a Facebook post from a Huntington Hills community member. "Does anyone know if the rumors about our HOA president are true? There's talk going around about some kind of estate fraud." I'm honestly shocked. Underneath were over 50 comments. Some were defending my mother. Most were asking questions. It had started. By the end of that week, she stepped down from the HOA board due to personal matters. The church posted a notice, saying she would be taking a break from leadership responsibilities. My mother had gone quiet, something she never did. Not unless something big was coming. And it was. I had one more step. Adam. He wasn't a bad person. He was just blind. My mother had always painted me as the weak, jealous daughter, and him as the golden boy. And he never questioned it. Never asked why I struggled while he got free houses and new furniture. He just smiled, and said things like, "You'll get there someday, Nick." I used to hate that. But now, I just felt sorry, because I was about to show him who the real victim was. I called him that Friday evening. He picked up on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "Hey Nick, what's up?" Adam's voice came through the phone, upbeat as always. He didn't know the storm that was coming for him. "Hey Adam, we need to talk," I said, my voice colder than I intended. There was a slight hesitation before he responded. Sure. What about?" I could feel the tension in the air already. I had spent years listening to him ignore the unfairness, years of watching him bask in the praise, while I was cast aside. But now was my time to make him listen. "About Mom," I said bluntly. He laughed nervously. "What about her? You know how she is, always busy, always acting like she's got everything under control. You know I'm not the one to talk to when it comes to her." "I'm talking about the house, Adam," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know, the one she gave you, the one she took from me." The line was silent for a long moment, then Adam's voice came through, quieter. "What do you mean?" "She gave me a house, because I've been doing well. I earned it, Nick. You know that." "I earned it too." I replied, my voice cutting through his excuse like a knife. I've been here, cleaning up messes, trying to get by while she has everything handed to her. You know I helped with Dad's business. I worked my tail off, and what do I get in return? A couple of leftover boxes, a few second-hand things she didn't need. There was an awkward silence on the other end. I could almost hear him shifting, probably trying to process everything I was saying. Nick, I didn't mean, Adam started, but I cut him off. I know you didn't mean it, Adam, but that's the problem. You never did, and neither did she. The phone line buzzed as if he was about to speak, but I continued, relentless now. I'm done being overlooked. I've spent my whole life living in the shadow of perfect Adam. But let me tell you something. I'm not that girl anymore. And as for Mom, well, I've already made sure the truth will come out. There was a sharp intake of breath from the other end. What do you mean? What truth? The truth about how she manipulated everything, how she forged documents, and how she's been hiding it all this time. I let the words sink in, letting the weight of what I was saying hit him like a ton of bricks. Don't worry, Adam, it's all coming out soon, whether you like it or not. I waited for his response, but there was only silence. Then, finally, he spoke in a low, stunned voice. Nick, you can't be serious. This is too far. You can't just destroy her like that. I laughed bitterly. She already destroyed me, Adam. Don't you get it? She has everything, and I have nothing. I've been living in her shadow my entire life, and you've never seen it. You've never seen how she's made me feel small, insignificant. Adam stayed silent, and I could feel the cracks in his confidence beginning to show. You'll see, Adam. I'm not the same person anymore. You and Mom, you're about to find out how this all really works. I'm not some background character in your perfect little life. He didn't respond right away. The phone line buzzed again, and I thought he might hang up, but instead, he just let out a soft sigh. Okay, but Nick, just remember, sometimes, revenge isn't as sweet as you think. I almost laughed at that. I don't need it to be sweet, I need it to be fair. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. There was no need for pleasantries. Adam had heard everything I needed him to. Now, all I had to do was wait. 2 days later, the storm I had set in motion began to gain speed. The first sign came when the lawyer I'd secretly hired called me with news. My mother's attorney had been contacted by the state's Board of Estates. There would be an inquiry into the suspicious changes made to my father's will. There was no turning back now. I couldn't help but smile. This was only the beginning. The pieces were falling into place, and it was only a matter of time before my mother and Adam saw everything I had been hiding in plain sight. And when they did, well, I had a front row seat for the most satisfying show of all. The phone call I received the next morning wasn't what I expected. It was from Adam, his voice a mix of anger and disbelief. Nick, what the hell are you doing? He practically shouted through the line. I let out a long breath before speaking calmly. I'm making things right, Adam. You're ruining everything, he said, his voice trembling with a mix of frustration and fear. Mom's going to lose everything. You can't just go around digging into the past like this. Why not? She did the same to me my entire life, I replied coldly. I've spent years dealing with her favoritism, with her making me feel like I was never good enough. Well, now she's going to feel how it feels. Just like I said, karma has a way of catching up. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds before Adam spoke again, quieter now. You're not thinking this through, Nick. This is going to destroy our family. You mean your perfect little family, right? I shot back, my words sharp. The one where I don't matter, where my work doesn't count, where I'm the one who always gets the leftovers. Well, I'm done. He sighed heavily, his voice softer now. Please, Nick, don't do this. I don't want to lose you too. For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt, but it was gone as quickly as it came. Adam had been part of the problem for so long. He had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, while I was left in the shadows. He had to understand what it felt like to lose everything, just like I had. I'm not the one destroying things, Adam. Mom did that a long time ago, I said. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a few moments, thinking about what had just happened. A part of me felt sorry for Adam, but most of me didn't. He had always been Mom's favorite. He had always been the one to get everything handed to him. It was time for him to see things from my side. The next few days were tense. Adam called a few more times, begging me to stop what I was doing, but I ignored him. I was done playing nice. My lawyer had already contacted me with updates, and it seemed the state was taking my allegations seriously. They were preparing to investigate the changes to my father's will, changes that were made after his death, with no official records of his approval. I didn't know exactly what would happen, but I was sure that it wouldn't end well for my mother. The final straw came when I got a call from my lawyer. "Nick, we need to talk," he said, his voice serious. "The investigation has uncovered something unexpected. You're going to want to prepare yourself." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "What do you mean?" "There's a discrepancy in the way your father's estate was handled. We found that some of the documents your mother signed after your father passed away were forged," he explained. "It seems she tried to conceal the changes she made to the will. This isn't going to end well for her." I felt a strange satisfaction wash over me. After all the years of being treated as less than, of being overlooked, I was finally going to get the justice I deserved. But there was something else too. It wasn't just about getting revenge anymore. It was about making sure that everyone knew the truth. Later that day, I received another call from Adam. His voice sounded strained, like he had been crying. "Nick, I didn't know," he said quietly. "I didn't know how bad it really was. I always thought Mom was just trying to do what was best for us, but I didn't see what she was doing to you. I'm sorry." It wasn't easy to hear those words from him. I had spent years wishing he would see the truth, wishing he would stand up for me. And now, when I had already started my revenge, he was finally starting to understand. "I'm not doing this to hurt you, Adam," I said softly. "I'm doing it because I need to. Because Mom made sure I didn't have a voice in this family. But now, I'm going to make sure the world knows what she did." The call ended with an awkward silence. I didn't know what would happen next. Would Adam support me now? Would he finally see the damage that my mother had caused? Or would he side with her? As always, the next few weeks were a whirlwind. The investigation into my father's estate was moving quickly, and soon, news of my mother's actions was starting to spread. She wasn't handling it well. My mother, the woman who always prided herself on her control, was now losing everything she had worked so hard to cover up. It wasn't long before the media got hold of the story. Headlines screamed about the family drama, about the forged documents, and the betrayal of a beloved father. People were talking. Friends, family, acquaintances, everyone had something to say about it. But what shocked me the most was how everything came to a head. One afternoon, I received a letter. It was from my mother's lawyer, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. She had disinherited me from everything, except for a small amount of money. She had given the majority of her estate to Adam, just as I had suspected. But there was a catch. The letter included one last clause, one that took me completely by surprise. "My dear Nick, in light of the events that have transpired, I want to make it clear that you are forgiven for your actions. However, you will never see a penny of my estate, as I have made sure everything will go to Adam." I stared at the letter for a long time, processing what it meant. It was a final insult, but the revenge wasn't over yet. No, this wasn't the end of my story. Not by a long shot. I smiled to myself, feeling the weight of my revenge, and knew that the final blow would come soon enough. The following week, I sat in my living room, staring at the letter in my hands. My mother's words echoed in my mind, but something inside me stirred. She thought she could win, thought she could control everything, even in the wake of the scandal she'd caused. But she underestimated me once again. I wasn't done. No, I had just begun. I carefully set the letter aside, and called my lawyer. His name was James, and he'd been my rock through all of this, helping me navigate the legal maze, while also offering a much-needed voice of reason. "James, I've got another plan," I said, my voice steady. But there was something different in it now. Something colder. "Nick, I think we've already gone as far as we can," he replied, his tone hesitant. "The investigation into your father's will is moving forward, and the press is going wild. Your mom's reputation is tarnished, and you've made your point." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. "It's not enough. She's still got control. Adam still gets everything. She's playing the victim, and I'm not going to let that slide." James was quiet for a moment. "What are you thinking?" "I want to make sure everything is revealed," I said firmly. "I want to make sure no one ever forgets how my mother manipulated me for years. I want her to lose everything, not just her reputation, but her ability to control this family. She needs to understand what it feels like to lose the power she's clung to for so long." I could hear the reluctance in his voice, but James was loyal. You've already done so much, Nick. Are you sure you want to push this further? I'm sure, I said, determination hardening my voice. This is the final step. Later that week, I met with my lawyer and a few trusted people from the legal team. We discussed the next steps, and I felt a growing sense of satisfaction as we moved forward. My mother was about to learn that karma was about to knock her down harder than she ever imagined. Adam, meanwhile, was still trying to reach me. I could feel the tension between us, his calls getting more desperate. I ignored them all. He was too late. He had spent too long turning a blind eye to my mother's actions, and now he wanted to fix things. It wasn't going to happen. The final piece of my plan fell into place the day I got a call from the state's legal office. They had officially launched a full investigation into my mother's actions regarding my father's estate. The forgeries, the cover-ups, the manipulations, it was all coming to light. But there was one more detail that made everything fall into place. The discovery that my father had secretly updated his will before he died. His true wishes were hidden in a document that no one knew about, a document that hadn't been touched by my mother. The revelation hit like a bombshell. My mother's plan to control everything was crumbling, and she didn't even know it yet. I kept watching as the news spread like wildfire. The court hearings, the public outcry, the whispers behind closed doors, all of it pointed to one undeniable fact. My mother's empire was falling apart, but there was still the final act to complete. I waited for the perfect moment to confront her. It came sooner than I expected. One afternoon, I received an invitation to a family meeting. It was from Adam, and it was clear that he was trying to broker some sort of peace between me and our mother. He wanted to fix things, but I wasn't interested in peace. I wanted justice. I showed up at the meeting, my mind focused, my heart cold. Mom was sitting at the head of the table, looking composed, but clearly rattled by the ongoing scandal. Adam, ever the peacekeeper, looked at me with a mix of worry and hope. Nick, he said, as I entered, I'm glad you came. Mom and I have been talking, and we think it's time for us to find some middle ground. My mother's eyes narrowed as she saw me walk in, and I could see her trying to mask her frustration. I'm glad you finally decided to show up, she said, her tone clipped. I'm here because we need to talk about the truth, I said, my voice firm. The truth that you've been hiding for years. The truth about Dad's will, about everything you did to keep control over the family. Her eyes flared with anger. This is ridiculous. You've made a spectacle of everything. I don't owe you anything. Actually, you do, I replied, not backing down. You owe me the truth. You owe me everything you've tried to take from me. And now, the truth is coming out. It's only a matter of time before the world knows what you've done. Adam looked between the two of us, his face tense. Nick, please. Mom's going through enough. Don't make this harder on her. I shook my head. No, Adam. I'm done being quiet. She made sure I got the leftovers my entire life. Well, now, it's her turn to get what she deserves. My mother's face turned pale, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. Nick, she said, her voice cracking. This isn't what your father would have wanted. You can't do this to the family. I'm not doing this to the family, I said, leaning forward. I'm doing this to you. And don't worry, Dad's true will is already out there. The truth is going to come to light, and everyone's going to know exactly who you are. Adam's face drained of color, and his hands trembled. What are you saying? What do you mean? I smiled, the satisfaction of revenge slowly filling me up. You'll see, Adam. You'll all see. And when you do, you'll finally understand what it feels like to be ignored, to be treated like you don't matter. With that, I stood up and walked out of the room. My mother's shouts followed me, but I didn't look back. The damage had been done, and as I left, I could already feel the weight of her control lifting, the scales tipping in my favor. I had won. The days that followed were a blur of press releases, legal hearings, and a public spectacle that my mother never expected. The story of her manipulation, of how she had taken control of my father's estate, spread like wildfire. It wasn't just about the inheritance, it was about the life she had tried to build at the expense of everyone else, the facade she had maintained for years. Every morning, I woke up to the headlines. Mother's hidden will revealed. Scandal rocks wealthy family. I didn't care for the spotlight, but it was a small price to pay to watch her unravel. Adam, surprisingly, came around. The reality of our mother's betrayal, hit him hard. He was never as close to her as I was, but seeing her true nature exposed, made him realize just how much she had manipulated him too. We met in a small cafe one afternoon, away from the chaos. I never thought she could go this far, Adam said quietly, staring into his coffee cup. I never saw it. I nodded. It's easy to ignore the signs when you're the one benefiting from it, but not anymore. Now, she's facing everything she tried to hide. I'm sorry, he said. For everything. I just smiled softly. It's okay. You didn't know, but now, you know, and that's enough. Over the next few weeks, my mother fought back, but it was clear she was losing ground. The legal battle was too much for her. She tried to use her usual charm, but her power had been stripped away, and no amount of money or influence could change that now. And then, there was the final blow, the day the estate was divided. My father's will was read aloud in front of the court, and my mother, sitting in the front row, couldn't even look up. She was humiliated, and I could see the rage boiling in her, but she knew it was over. Her empire had crumbled, and all that was left was the wreckage. I was left with my father's final wishes, everything he had promised me, his love, his respect, and the legacy he wanted me to carry forward. In the end, that was all I needed. When the dust settled, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel joy. What I felt was peace, a peace I had never known before. My mother had lost everything, and in the end, it was her own actions that led to her downfall. She had underestimated me, thinking I would always be the quiet daughter who took the leftovers. But I had learned from her mistakes. I had learned to fight for what was mine, and in doing so, I had finally earned my place in the family, not just by blood, but by my own strength. Adam and I eventually reconciled. Our relationship grew stronger, built on honesty, and a newfound respect for each other. He wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but we both understood that the truth was what mattered in the end. As for my mother, well, she faded into the background, no longer the domineering force she had once been. She spent her days trying to repair the wreckage of her life, but the damage was done. People had seen her for who she really was, and the trust she had spent years building evaporated overnight. Karma had delivered her justice, and as for me, I walked away not just with what was rightfully mine, but with the strength to move forward, free from the chains she had tried to keep me in. I had taken my revenge, but in the end, it wasn't just about the satisfaction of seeing her lose. It was about reclaiming my life, and making sure that no one, especially not my mother, could ever take that away from me again.